Okay, it's 3 o'clock on March 5th, 2018 for the meeting of the Architecture Advisory Committee. We ask everyone who's in the audience to silence their cell phones. Planning Director, if we can have roll call.
Certainly, Madam Chair. Member Dosey?
Present.
Member Jakeway?
Present.
Member Lockyer is excused. Member McCoy is excused. Member Rotman?
Present.
Member Miller?
Present.
Vice Chair Cassidy is excused. And Chair Song.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. May we have the staff report on the posting of the agenda?
Madam Chair, the agenda was posted on Thursday, March the 1st. This meeting has been noticed and posted in accordance with state law.
Thank you. Does the committee have any revisions to the agenda? Okay, is there a move to accept the agenda?
I move.
Okay, anyone second that?
Second.
Thank you, Tom. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. Since this is a public meeting, audience members are permitted to comment on any issue that is within this committee's purview. Since I don't see any audience, we'll pass to the meeting minutes from last meeting. And understand there is the four of us. Hi, Sheila. And so is there any comments on the meeting minutes of February 20th?
Yes.
Okay, Tom?
At the very end, when we summarized, I think Flynn mentioned the one of the, not conditions, but one of the suggestions was that they square up the road in front of the building, and instead of making it a wedge shape of asphalt, that it becomes a larger planter.
Okay.
And I didn't quite see that clearly written in here.
Was that, could we put that under member Jakeway verified and commented on?
Well, it says wedge-shaped landscape buffer in front that I commented on, but then towards the end of the meeting, when it was summarized for us, I think we talked about including that in the list of recommendations to the, as a specific recommendation to the applicant.
We may have meant that to be included under incorporate AAC comments to landscape plan, but what we'll do is we'll spell that out so it's clear that that is part of those recommendations, if the board is in agreement.
Yes. Okay, any other comments?
I have one clarification.
Yes.
In terms of the dealership, the size of the rock, I think what we wanted, the suggestion was that they could look at the 3/4 inch rock, but also if they wanted to use a smaller size, like a 3/8 inch rock, that would be acceptable. But we were trying to give them some direction that the whole project did not need to be the decomposed granite, that other rock materials would be acceptable, some of the cobble, 3/4 inch or 3/8 inch.
Are good variations and variety.
Okay, we will note that.
Okay, is there a motion to accept the meeting notes with the revisions that were discussed just now?
I'll move that.
Okay, I need a second.
Second?
Thank you, Tom. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. One opposed? Thank you. Okay, so at this time, we'll move on to the unfinished business. Francisco Aguilar Design on behalf of the Castaneda's Mexican Food for minor architecture approval to alter exterior building wall colors and landscape. Staff report, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon. As you may recall, this project was originally reviewed by the Architecture Advisory Committee on January 16th. And today, you are requested to review the revisions to the original submittal. For those who are not familiar with the project site, this property is approximately 3,700 square feet in the area, and it has an existing freestanding restaurant, which is about 4,600 square feet. The facility also has a drive-through in the back facing the rear parking lot. The displayed image shows the existing elevations of the buildings. As you see, the fascia beams of the buildings, as well as the beams and rafters of the freestanding pergola, are painted red. And the applicant was initially seeking approval for this color scheme. However, at the meeting on January 16th, Architectural Advisory Committee recommended the applicant to consider reducing the impact of red paint. The color sample on the left is what applicant was originally proposing. And then after receiving a comments from the AAC, the applicant decided to replace the Valspar Classic Red with the PGG Chocolate Truffle Brown, and replace the Dujour Valspar paint with Area, which is by PPG as well. With the application of the new paints, this is how the south elevation of the building is going to look like. As you see, the beams and the fascia of the building is going to be brown. And the primary difference between the previous proposal and the revision is the bougainvillea that you see here right by the pergola structure. This bougainvillea will be placed in the 4 containers and placed at the base of each pergola column to add color and also to bring a natural element to the area. And this is the primary elevation of the building. The same color paint will be applied on this elevation as well. And this is a previous landscape plan that the applicant proposed. As you see, the plan had a general lack of planting materials, and particularly this is evident in the perimeter landscape as well. Just to look at the parking areas, it does not have any shade trees. And this is a proposed design. The applicant is proposing to increase the amount of plant materials from the previously proposed 62 to 157. And then also the plan proposes addition of a 10 Desert Museum Palo Verde for shading in the parking lot. Based on the submitted plans, the staff finds that the revision is consistent with the specific plan and the general plan design guidelines, as well as water efficient ordinance and the water efficient landscape design guidelines. And then for the reason, the staff recommends approval of the project subject to the conditions of approval that are stated in the staff report. The applicant and the staff are both available to answer any questions you may have. And this concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you, Noriko. Questions for staff? Yes, Member Robert.
Hi, Noriko. Thank you. Could you remind me what I think it's the B color, which was originally du jour and now it's Aria. What is the, they're both kind of, is the Aria a brighter white? Is that what it is?
Let me take a look at the actual hard copy plan. I understand that it's scanned, so the color is kind of lost a little bit.
Yeah.
The proposed PPG, the area color is a little bit more grayish, I should say, whereas the du jour was more ivory white. There's a slight change to it, but if you look at the staff report, which is page 4, these colors are taken from the paint manufacturer's website directly, so this shows the color.
Okay. Ours are black and white, but.
Oh, it is? Oh. Here.
All right.
We trust Noriko.
Okay. And then did I understand that they're proposing to put the bougainvillea on the pergola in pots at the base of the columns?
That is correct.
Have they submitted anything about the pots yet?
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Member Tom Jakeway.
Just a question, are we being asked only to review the colors, or are we looking at signage also?
Staff conducted a permit review, and the staff was not able to locate the permit. So if you look at the page 2 of the staff report, the staff is imposing a condition of approval stating that the applicant is required to submit sign permit application within 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions for Noriko? Noriko, I have a question for you. So on the site plan, could you identify when you say that the permit records for the existing wall, drive-through, and monument, you're referring to the monument on Indian Canyon?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and then the existing wall, where's that existing wall located?
Let's see. Just to clarify, wall means that the signs that's attached to the face of the building.
Okay.
Right, that's just the type of signs that we call wall signs.
Okay. So drive-through, I'm guessing is the drive-through signage.
Yes, that is correct.
Perhaps let me just clarify. What Noriko meant in the staff report is that we don't have current permits for the signage. Burger King, when they originally developed, had permits for the drive-through signage, the monument sign, the wall signs. But as you change those out, you still need to get permits. And what Noriko is indicating in the staff report is that they haven't obtained those permits yet to change out those signs.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is the applicant present? Could you come up front and state your name and address?
Hi, good afternoon. Is it on? Okay.
Your name and address.
My name is Francisco Aguilar, and my office is in Palm Desert, 45175 Panorama Drive, Suite E.
Okay, thank you, Francisco. You ready for our questions, or would you like to state anything about the project?
I prefer to stay. I will wait.
Okay. Okay, so we have some questions for you. Don't go anywhere.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, questions for the applicant, starting with Susan. Do you have any questions? I mean, Sheila.
I like the new colors, and all of my concerns actually had to do with what would happen with the bougainvillea if they weren't watered and dyed, and those were pretty much answered in the staff report. So I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Member Tom?
No questions of the applicant.
Okay. Member Tom?
No questions?
Member Robert?
I have a question.
Okay.
Can you talk to me about the proposed pots that you're going to use to plant the bougainvillea in?
Okay, to make it short, the new tenant is leasing the property and trying to avoid digging the concrete to get the bougainvilleas. We propose using pots instead, and maybe an irrigation system will be there. But to prevent digging and making holes in the concrete, we made the decision of having pots to make it easier.
And do you have an idea of how large these pots are going to be?
Here's the guy.
I think it should be like between like 30 inches, 36 inches.
In diameter, and then
diameter,
how high?
By like 18 inches.
Okay.
Or 24 inches, I think.
Could you
With the
state your
right size.
name and address also for our record?
My name is Luis Sandoval, 45175 Panorama Drive, Suite C.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Luis, do you know also on off of Indian Canyon when you're coming in to the restaurant? I think there's a photograph that shows that entry. Noriko, can you go to this one? Okay, at that entry there, on the landscape plans, I see maybe some shrubbery that is being proposed, but I can't see off of the legend.
What we're proposing is agave perii, which by the signage, and then which it grows between like probably 24-inch wide by 24-inch.
On both sides or just on
the other side? I think that I have different. I have Hawaiian blue eyes planting, which is also 24 by 24-inch.
24 by 24 inch.
Yes, and then I think I'm using some bougainvillea also.
Okay. Okay, good. Much better. Much better. Okay, so one more time so we can get the full picture. On the right side of that walkway, you're proposing...
I'm using a combination of Hawaiian blue eyes, I think some bougainvillea, and also some lantana.
Okay, and then on the left side?
By the signage is only agave perii, which is 24 wide by 24-inch high. I'm using some broken rock also.
Broken rocks. Okay.
Yes.
Very good. Any other questions? Maybe, yeah, okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to start with Member Robert, your observations.
I think it's a big improvement over last time that we saw it. And overall, I like the project, and I would sign off on it.
Hey, Member Tom.
Just a few comments regarding the landscape. I think I like the improvements made in the landscape plan. I had one concern about the Palo Verde that's proposed near the drop-off area, kind of in the corner of the building there. It will most likely get too large for that location, and they may want to select a smaller type tree because they'll have to keep pruning it back not to interfere with the building or with the drive aisle.
Is that on the middle island?
Yeah, as you drive.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. On that re-entrant corner.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, where you exit out, right in the corner of the building there, past the the delivery window. Mm-hmm. And I think overall, there's some boulders out there that look like they were there from the previous that are set properly. There's others that are like on the surface, and I think before they do this landscape installation, that there should be some condition or some grading should take place, to form the proper mounds and make sure the grade's low enough adjacent to the sidewalk, to make this composition, come together and look well as planned on the plan. The other comment I have is I believe the trees should be a 36-inch box size. The 24-inch box will just be too small, for these locations. Mm-hmm. And then the other element would be they had mentioned they can't dig under the pavement where the pots are going to go. So I'm assuming they're planning on hand watering them, which I think it would be better to have some permanent irrigation that comes up through the bottom of the pot versus trying to hand water them and to maintain that. So, hopefully we might see something come back to staff on the actual pots themselves. Mm-hmm. I think if the agave perii are called out as 5-gallon, they should actually be larger. Those will only be about 6 inches in size when they are installed, and I think that would be too small. So I'd like to see those increased in size. And then the Ocotillo looks like it's called out as a 5-gallon, and typically we'll call those out by height and the number of canes. So I think for the Ocotillo, we would want to see 6 to 8 foot or 8 to 10 foot versus a 5-gallon plant.
Yeah. Me first. Tom, on the bougainvillea sizes that they're planning to put on these pots, the photograph rendering shows it as fully grown and, very beautifully sort of formed around the porch. What should be the starting size so that it can get to that potential?
They would have to, bougainvillea comes in two forms, one a bush form and one an espalier. So my recommendation would be a 15-gallon espalier that they could take off the trellis, or the stake and begin to start the growth habit up the pergola.
Thank you. Member Robert.
Just a question for you. If the bougainvillea is in pots and whether they have irrigation or they hand water it, are there drainage issues that you need to address related to the paving? Because it is right at the entry and...
Yeah, typically the detail would have two pipes going up into the bottom of the pot. One would be for drainage, one would be for irrigation. If they're unable to do that, they could fill the bottom of the pot and create kind of a sump with some rock and gravel in there, and then that would allow for some drainage. But fortunately, bougainvillea are drought tolerant, so sometimes if they have consistent hand watering, it can work.
Thank you, Tom. Member Tom.
Excuse me, I have a question probably for my colleague, Mr. Dosey. Can you get a big enough root ball on the bougainvillea for it to grow that big around the trellis? If we're limited to a pot size, can the bougainvillea really grow that big?
It's typically going to grow probably up to the height of the trellis. I don't see it actually going across unless it was in the ground itself.
I mean, it seems to me that we're saying if they're going to be putting irrigation, they're going to be breaking into the concrete anyway.
Correct.
So if that's the situation, then I think it would be better if they could plant them in the ground. And my second comment would be, as we look at the revised landscape plan, I wonder if the Palo Verdes along the driveway to the drive-up are going to overhang the driveway such that they're going to be damaged by cars driving up to the drive-up.
So, Tom, I think you're pointing out to potentially three locations. One is
Yes.
at the second 90-degree. That's the first one. The second one is in the middle island, and then the third one is at the re-entrant corner that Tom had also mentioned as well.
Correct. And since those locations, the trees aren't really functioning as shade for parking, it might make more sense if it's just additional palm trees.
Additional palm trees or more vertical, more
Yes.
tighter shaped trees. Okay.
And that's all.
Let me wrap with, would you like to also comment in? Yeah.
I think the color change is a great improvement. I happened to be here when you originally submitted. I like it. The bougainvillea, I absolutely love it, but I'm genuinely concerned about the reality of how it's going to look. I'm assuming that you plan to run outside water lines into the bottom of the pot and all that sort of thing. I still just think there's a potential for an eyesore with it and an awful lot of supervision. If it doesn't turn out, you have to replant right away. You've got 2 weeks. And who is it who is going to be enforcing all of this, driving by and checking the bushes every 2 weeks? I have serious concerns about the implementation of the bougainvillea. I love the idea, but I don't know, maybe we could have a little more detail as far as how it would actually work. That's my thought.
I think what we all agree is that the changes and then the new design that is being proposed is a huge improvement, as Member Robert had mentioned. I think we all love this idea of the bougainvilleas, but perhaps there are several suggestions, like, for example, we could have a taller pot that's not 24 inches, but perhaps it's 48 inches, and then the plant starts growing much higher, and it gives a little more emphasis on the basis of those posts, and then it has the length that is going to grow. It starts much higher than where it's supposed to grow. The size of the bougainvilleas also is going to help, and the type of the bougainvillea. Right now, I think we have taken them into this direction, and what I would like is for them to consider the different options on the pot sizes and configuration to see if we can make this design concept work, rather than, direct them into a different direction. So I think, having said that, we have about three issues that we would like for the staff to continue.
Make one more comment?
Yes.
They're saying here that there's going to be 4 pots at each of the columns. So that means on that little small patio, there's 16 pots. Is that going to be too much of a cluster of pots?
16 pots?
It says here on item number 1, be planted in 4 containers at the base of each pergola. Does that mean a total of 16 or a total of 4?
4.
If you look at the landscape plan, look at the pergola, I'm assuming the round circles, the double round circles, represent the bougainvillea
Oh,
pots.
right. Thank you.
But Tom, I think you do bring up a good point that the 2 that are facing the door should perhaps be on the opposite side of those posts. So in the walkway, the bougainvilleas are not in the way of the pedestrian. Yeah. So far what we have discussed is the alternative on the tree types when it comes to the drive-through. The additional information that the applicant has provided on the entrance walkway, having more material of landscape than has been defined here, that I think Noriko is going to further develop. The third is the pots that we do ask for proper irrigation and a larger and taller pot design so that the boulder, the Spalier 15-gallon, has a chance to make this design concept. Yes, Member Robert.
Regarding the trees around the drive-through, I wonder if we should add the 4th tree, which is as you exit the drive-through and you turn to the right, it's a one-way drive aisle. It's kind of floating in the middle. If we should add that also, if that's potentially a hazard.
Oh, I see. So there's 4.
4.
Total of 4. Okay. Noriko, you got the 4? Okay, all right. Okay, have we missed anything? Okay, I think we missed the motion. Okay, Member Robert?
I move so. Do you need to recap?
No. So just to summarize, the motion being made by Member Rotman is with the 3 conditions as already identified by Chair Song.
Yes.
So we will incorporate those.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second?
Okay, Member Tom Jackaway. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're moving to new business, O2 Architecture on behalf of Francis Labranche to construct a single-family residence on a vacant hillside lot located at 977 West Via Olivera. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair Song and committee members. The application before you is for a hillside development project consisting of a single-family residence that's roughly just under 2,400 square feet in size, as well as an attached 2-car garage of 502 square feet. The site is a vacant, undeveloped parcel on West Via Olivera. It is surrounded by homes on all sides with the exception of the south and north. Those sites are vacant, as you see in the aerial photograph on the screen. The house is configured in an L shape with the garage being on the northerly portion of the site and the house itself being in an east-west direction. It does contain 3 bedrooms and has the main living area in the center of the property. The rear of the property on the south side, the bottom of this exhibit here on the drawing, is where the pool deck and pool area will be located. And they do propose to renaturalize the site with the existing sand and dirt that is there and boulders. They are proposing to keep and retain the existing boulder berm that is located on along the street. So if you've been out there, you'll see there is an existing kind of a rock boulder berm along the edge of the street on the frontage of the site. So that will be retained. This is the roof plan that is proposed. There are essentially 3 planes on the roof, one for the flat area on the garage, and then the other 2 for the primary, over the primary residence area. Elevations, you see the south elevation here on the top of this screen, the north elevation in the middle, and the west elevation on the bottom. So you'll see the site does, the terrain, natural terrain does slope from west to east downward. And they're proposing 1 flat pad for the entire house and a slight, as well as the garage. So with that, they do have some retaining that would occur on the easterly side of the house for to raise up for the pad or in the finished floor, and then they would have some earth retaining on the west side of the house for the garage and a portion of the house. This shows the east elevation of the site. So this, again, this shows the retaining that would be, the bottom portion of it is the CMU blocks that would be for retaining earth for the finished floor to be consistent. And then the middle and bottom exhibit here do show site sections through the site and the adjacent homes and their finished floors. So it really does integrate with the adjacent properties when you look at the site section here in the middle, with the westerly property higher up on the hill, and the lower property to the east is also situated a little bit lower than this pad. The applicant provided some 3D renderings of the project, which are shown here on the screen. You see there is a slight drop in elevation on the southwest corner of the site, so they are going to accentuate that a little bit for some of the drainage that would be required for this project. They are actually removing some of the cubic yards from the site, some earthwork from the site to accommodate the pad for the home. So the materials are all essentially neutral grays, off-white, and the material board they did provide is up on the wall, next to the wall here, and we'll pass that around for you to review. But it's essentially what you see here on the screen with the actual materials that are proposed. As I said, the dirt or the inert material will be the natural terrain or the dirt that's there now. They are proposing some new landscape plantings consistent with the desert palette and the Coachella Valley Water District's recommendations in the Lush and Efficient Guidebook. So that essentially concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any additional questions. I would just note that in the background of the report, there is one error, a copy and paste error on the table. The owner is actually Francis LaBranch, not Brian and Lisa Eberhardt, as noted in the staff report. So the date is correct, 11/22/2002, but the owner is Francis LaBranch, and they have owned it since 2002. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Any questions for staff? Yes, Member Tom.
David, does the city have a requirement for minimum setback for mechanical equipment from the property line?
So the zoning code does allow mechanical equipment in the yards, in the side and rear yards. It can be located in the front yard, but not closer than 20 feet. I could be wrong, but I think it does comply with that. What they're proposing does comply with the city's requirements for.
So there is no minimum amount in the side yards?
There's no separation requirement, but there is a requirement that they put a block wall around it to attenuate noise. So they, on the east side of this project, there is an existing block retaining wall on the adjacent neighbor's lot, so that would be addressed there.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, is the applicant present?
Good afternoon, committee. Lance O'Donnell, O2 Architecture, 1089 North Palm Canyon Drive, Suite B. Hey, thanks for that great report, David. If we can pull the site plan up, I'll just talk about some of the things that were driving the design and the generation of the design. So the client is retired and came with an architectural brief that said, I want to die in this house, which meant that aging in place was something that we had to think about seriously. Typically, we would approach projects like this with multiple steps or at least a step in the site in these hillsides, but that configuration just wasn't going to work for this house. So the long axis east and west, trying to achieve as much energy efficiency and passive solar design and cross ventilation as we could, set this home up so that it was going into and out of grade. And so we chose what is essentially the middle of the site, the equidistant from the low point and the high point, and said, okay, we're going to start there. We're going to berm on one side, an equal amount we're going to elevate on the other side. And so that's how we arrived at where the finished floor is and how the house relates to the site. The site is not undisturbed. It's actually, I'd almost call it like a brownfield. Somebody has come out there and put a bunch of old tar immediately under the surface. And so they were filling it with what looks like road debris. And so when we had our geotechnical engineer out there, they said, this stuff over time will erode and get smaller. We need to pull all this stuff out. So what we chose to do was to push the house as far north as we could and off of as much of this fill as we possibly could. And then to augment and to bring the site back into something that felt much more naturally, as David was explaining, in the southwest corner, we introduced a little arroyo that comes up into the kind of crux of the home there. So that little arroyo is doing a couple things for us. One is it's re-naturalizing an existing condition, and then it's acting as our on-site detention. So we're moving as much water off of the roofs and off of the decks and things into that little arroyo detention area. What I've found, I built a house up in that neighborhood 10 years ago, and what happens generally is where the extra water starts to accumulate from those new hard surfaces, you get what I call volunteers. So trees will volunteer, bushes will plant, Encelia, creosote, all manner of stuff will start to grow. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to augment the front with additional boulders that we know we're going to pull out of the site. So there'll be a natural boulder landscape along the street. We're augmenting that with trees. And we're trying to filter as much of this prevailing wind as we can. We get seasonally very high winds up there. And so the front door, the windows, the indoor-outdoor environments in the home are very, very much aware of those seasonal wind patterns and seasonal sun. So that the house is very modest in a way, but it's creating something on the streetscape that I've always enjoyed in those neighborhoods, which is a little bit of mystery and the sense that the drive approach, the approach to the front door and things, while somewhat evident is also not, setting itself up for, the neighborhood porch kind of deal, because up there it is just, it can be seasonally very, very tough. And with all the boulders and trying to keep as many of those natural rock features up there as possible, what we wind up getting is larger areas where we're renaturalizing with those boulders. So that's the intent. The intent is something that's living lightly on the land, single floor, somewhat of a mystery from the street, set back, a good neighbor, both downhill and uphill, relative to the overall side elevation is very thin. So even though the neighbor downhill, we're uphill and they're kind of looking up at us relative to the way the natural site features work, it is a very, very small portion of the overall north-south aspect of the site that is sort of rendered in something solid. And then, again, there's nothing there that interferes with privacy. We're not trying to look in that direction. We're not trying to look down on the neighbor, but rather it's a very blank wall. And we're doing the same thing on the west. We're trying to mitigate that solar exposure on the east and west as much as possible. And where we're really opening up is we're opening up to the south in the view. And then to a certain extent, we're opening up clear-story views to the west and to the north in and around the home. But yeah, we're obviously quite proud of the design and feel like it's going to fit really well into the fabric of that neighborhood. And we're happy to take any questions that you guys might have.
Thank you. Questions for the applicant? Okay, I see a lot of, okay, Member Robert?
So, can you talk a little bit more about the hydro seeding in the disturbed areas and how extensive that, I mean, when I look at the plan, it looks kind of extensive.
Yeah. One thing that what I've found just empirically up there is that we will get encelia that pop up, last a couple of years and go away, and then repropagate themselves somehow. And I don't know if those seeds just sit there and germinate themselves depending upon heavy rain one year, heavy rain, or just a disturbance, the natural fauna walking around and pushing it in. I don't know what happens, but what happens is this sort of kind of overall renaturalization that just keeps occurring. And we're going to probably throw a good deal of seed out there and see what pops up.
Thank you.
So, Lance, the garage, it seems to have its sort of simplicity and purity compared to the rest of the house. Was that intentional? Was that, how did you approach for the garage to be different than the remaining of the house?
The Mass just wanted to be as recessive as possible. We're using it as kind of the first layer of the windbreak for the house. So I always think of that as the prow of the ship. So the garage is starting to move the air left and right around that front door. The front door is intentionally put into the east so that it's not being exposed to the prevailing winds. But the garage just, if it could be a carport and go away, that would have been our choice. We have very few clients that allow us to do carports. But, I mean, if I can make a garage as small and as diminutive as possible, that's going to be my ultimate goal.
And does it have a parapet, or is it?
It has a very slight inward slope to a drain. So no, it doesn't have a parapet per se.
So so plaster continues from the wall to the horizontal?
Yeah, it's probably a single ply membrane roof, so it'll have a drip edge metal that'll be, consistent with the same color as the stucco below.
Okay. And then the entrance has this sort of a vertical roof, let me call that, to shield from the wind. And it has also, I think it has almost a vertical angle that goes inwards. Am I reading that right?
You are, yeah. So we're pushing our or past experiences with standing seam metal a little bit, and we'll try to do either new materials or take a material that we've worked with before and kind of push it till it's a logical extension. And so this standing seam metal roof it's a warp plane. So it starts out at an angle of about, I don't know, let's say 80 degrees, and then goes to 90 degrees over the length of that 12 or 15 feet. So it's just this warped surface that's going from a slight angle to vertical as it goes east to west. And the interior is the same. So the interior, when you approach the front door, it's not a vertical surface at the front door. It's and maybe can you see in there, David, in one of the views? Maybe the elevation. Anyway, it's a cool little feature, and the client really initially thought, well, gee, you guys provided us with a really plain front elevation. Can you do something to it? So where we started to accentuate the front elevation was at the door, and then just the breaking down of the plaster into these vertical rectangles. We've also, these are somewhat older. There's another feature at the far left-hand side where there's a toilet room there with a window, and so we've put an additional screen element in front of that window there that's on that center elevation left-hand side, so the easternmost. So there's vertical elements that are kind of marching along in a rhythm that's increasing spacing from east to west.
So when I look at the middle exterior elevation, if I was a guest, I will come in between the planter and then the airplane wall.
Correct.
That's how. That's the invitation to come into the home.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Member Tom.
Lance, on the elevation here, it seems like there's clear story in the great room facing the street, but I don't see it on the plan. Is the elevation the correct?
Yeah, elevation's correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, other Member Tom?
Lance, I had a question. On the section, it appears that there is berming up against the structure itself, not along the garage, but further back towards, like, I guess the laundry room and that area. So even though the elevation, it almost looks like there's berming against the garage, along the north elevation, that's graded around there, but the only berming occurs?
No, so we start out at the garage door at 0 on that north elevation, and then it is moving up until we get to about 40 inches. And that 40 inches occurs at the back side of the garage. So it's starting at 0 on the east, and along that edge of the garage, it's kind of running naturally uphill. We do have a little mechanical unit in there that we're flattening out an area for that mechanical unit, but it is sloping uphill. David, could you go to the front, those 3 elevations? Yeah. So Tom, as you see that elevation, the center elevation, that's depicting pretty much what the dirt is doing and the soil is doing up against it.
So it is coming up, the
contours
run right into the structure.
It's coming up and then wrapping around the back.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you look at the plan, it looks like kind of a cleared level area.
No.
But those are actually the contours.
Yeah, the contours are. Yeah, there's block at the base of the garage on the 2 sides, the north and the west.
So it's actually tucked in then? Okay.
Yep.
And then you'll make some provision for that equipment then to...
And there's a set of stairs in the back of the garage?
That was my other question.
There was at one time, and since this was submitted, we now have access to that little court that's between the garage and the house through a sliding glass door. And it's included in this drawing. So there's a sliding glass door from the interior into that small courtyard between the garage and the house. We did have a set of stairs back there at one time to get down and do maintenance in there, but I think subsequently we've removed those? Yeah, so we've removed those.
so we need some clearing out some landscape to have access, or how does that landscape courtyard work between the garage and the sliding doors?
One of the homeowners is horticulturist, and we'll be doing some planting in there that's probably very special to him. Probably a bunch of different types of succulents and things. And since he's going to be doing it himself, I'm sure he'll provide a provision for getting to each and every plant in there. But I anticipate that it's going to be a wonderful little kind of microclimate in there that, will be very special for them coming and going through that little bridge to the garage.
Okay, sorry, I interrupted Tom. Yeah, go ahead.
Another addition. So Lance, wherever we see in the site plan there, kind of the beige, clear areas, that would be the wildflower mix in those areas.
Yeah.
And then the only other comment was, I noticed on the east elevation, there's no, it looks like it might need some landscaping in there just to buffer it between the house next door or some small trees or something on that elevation. Was there a reason there was no planting?
I think, Tom, the reason we kept it fairly clear is we're going to need one access point for the pool guy, the gardener, and just getting around the side of the house. We can't really do it that effectively on the west side just because we're uphill and we're tending to use the boulders a lot more there. And there was a lot of things going on this lower side. We needed some detention area because it is the low point. We needed to have, as I said, just access through there. But I'm sure at the end of the day, the one thing I would like to see is the base of that block wall augmented with rock and just inert stuff that then, as you know, we've got a good deal of water coming down off that roof, and we're going to tend to have maybe a small little area there that there is opportunities for things to grow, and I'm sure they will. So we're catching all the water off that large roof. It's going down into that detention area, and then I think our latest grading plan shows us with overflow moving into the larger recreated arroyo.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Member Robert.
A couple of small little things. Is there accommodation for trash cans? Is it in the garage or outside the building?
Yeah, so I think in a more recent plan we had between the boulder berm at the north property line and the garage, there was a little bit larger mechanical trash enclosure thing, but proximate to the garage itself so that it's convenient.
And then just as I'm moving to the backyard now, and it looks like there's a block wall on the east side that defines the pool area. Is that what it is?
It is a block wall.
And that's what, 60 inches high or something?
No, I think at the max it's 42 inches high.
Okay.
But we're picking up the grade as it goes around from the pool back around that side yard. So it'll probably read about 24 inches and then going up to 42 at the.
And then is the backyard, the pool area, actually secured from the street?
We're going to need to do some provisions. Right now we have the pool as a rectangle, and when we create these rectangular pools, we're typically putting in an automatic pool cover in them. We found that the Building and Safety Department doesn't really recognize those as a barrier, so there's probably going to be some additional fencing at the property line on the north there of some sort. In these really natural settings, it's one of the things that we struggle with because they can look, as you all know, they can look so foreign to the site as somebody tries to, kind of go up and down and keep this 5-foot barrier. So we're going to try to put it out of sight of the homeowners and downhill, down in that natural arroyo down there, and still try to maintain that city-required separation.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Could we just go to section number 2? I just wanted to get a clarification. So on section number 2, the area, I'm going to call that on the left side or the east side.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a lower grade there, and the wall shown is the existing property line wall?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, there's an existing block wall between the two properties.
And so you're kind of doing a thickened edge footing there, and then the house is built up. So that low area, okay, will stay low. And then the grade kind of slopes up against that foundation?
It will. We're going to have to do two things. One, we're going to have to slope away from their wall because we don't want to drive water into their wall. Mm-hmm. And yeah, as much as we can mitigate, that side yard wall is, you know, it's not the architectural feature for the house. Although, as you see in that elevation up above it, it does have this kind of nice long linear quality that turns into that front planter. So it's very three-dimensional and integrated into the project, but it's not. It's, you know, for me, it's like the socks, you know, underneath the really nice pair of slacks. It's not. It's not what we're showing off.
But then there is like looks like an AC unit or something.
Yeah, there's you know, we.
Okay.
Yeah, we do a good job of trying to integrate those things into logical locations.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Member Tom Jakeway.
Lance, was there ever any consideration looking at that section we were just looking at to, instead of putting the building wall right on top of the retaining wall, to pull the retaining wall to the east 2 or 3 feet to give just kind of a stair step there and an opportunity for some planting to be kind of on multiple levels there?
No, we didn't consider that. What we were considering was to minimize the footprint. You know, we also have a budget, and we're trying to we're trying to use these stem walls as a continuation of the perimeter edge wall. So, insofar as we could keep everything essential and using these block walls as the foundation stem walls, we were doing it. So, rather than having a retaining wall and then footings inside of that, we just take those down and use the footings underneath those and just do one single move. Oh, no, I get the idea of stepping that, but it was more a matter of just keeping the architecture as clean and as essential.
I think the long planter that you have that runs parallel to the building projects past that wall slightly, so I think it kind of makes it a moot point.
Okay. Thank you, Lance.
You're welcome.
All right, I'll start with Member Sheila.
I like it.
Based on findings. Okay. Member Tom.
I want to compliment Lance. I think it's a great design. It's a very interesting use of different materials. It's creative for the neighborhood. I love the boulders creating the separation between the street and the house. I think separating the garage from the house and having that little glassed breeze will make a wonderful experience as you enter the house from the garage. So the only comment I would have is, can the air conditioning equipment that's shown in that side yard possibly be pulled somewhat up towards the driveway, maybe where you're showing a creosote, so it's in the front yard also, and gives, I think, a little easier access along the side yard, and also wouldn't provide any noise issue for the neighbors if it was pulled away a bit. See the green dot there with the creosote, if it might move up into there. Just a recommendation.
Okay. Member Tom Dozy.
I think I like the solution that Lance has come up with. I think my only concern, again, is with Member Jakeway's, you know, how that AC, that side area is going to be handled. I would like to see some additional plantings in that area, such as creosote. I could understand where maybe there doesn't need to be a lot of height, but I think some height in there would just to soften that edge of the building.
Okay, Member Robert.
I think it's a very nice design. It fits well into the neighborhood. I know the neighborhood very well. And I actually know the neighbors to the west, and they are very happy with the design and what's being proposed. So I think it's a great job. Thank you.
Okay, so I think that these are a couple of minor things, but the security sort of fencing design that gets added into the project should be reviewed by staff. The location of the trash enclosure, it seems like they already have it, but the exhibits need to be updated. And then the shifting of the mechanical location so that it could be better wedged into the existing landscape. And additional planting on the east side will be the 5 comments that would go along with what I'm making a motion to approve this project. So do I have a second on that?
Second?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Okay, at this point, do we have any committee member comments? Thank you for coming and making sure that today we actually deliberate on these 2 cases. Director, do you have any comments?
I don't have any comments.
Okay, at this point is 4:02 and we're adjourned.
Great. Thank you all very much.
Yeah, no kidding.